You put your baby down, you wait, you count to 10, maybe 20, and you start to tiptoe toward the door. Then right as your foot crosses the threshold, the crying starts. Every time. It doesn't matter how deeply they were sleeping, how carefully you moved, or how long you waited. The moment you leave, they know. Most parents assume this is just bad luck, or that their baby is particularly difficult, or that they're doing something wrong. They blame the squeaky floorboard. They blame themselves for not being consistent enough, for not following the right sleep method, for picking the baby up too many times last week. None of that is actually what's happening. What's really going on has to do with how your baby's brain is built, and once you understand it, the whole thing starts to make a lot more sense. There's a reason babies seem to have a sixth sense for when you leave. It's not a coincidence, and it's not manipulation. It's biology that goes back hundreds of thousands of years, and researchers have spent decades trying to figure out exactly how it works. Some of what they've found is going to change the way you think about bedtime, about night wakings, and about what your baby actually needs from you right now. The most persistent belief about babies and sleep is that they should be able to sleep through the night by a certain age. Pediatricians used to say 3 months. Then they pushed it to 4 months, then 6. Parents read books that promised results in 3 days. They tried cry it out, no cry, fading methods, scheduled feeding, demand feeding, and millions of exhausted parents followed all the instructions and still ended up standing in the hallway at 2 in the morning wondering what they were doing wrong. The assumption underneath all of this advice is that babies have a sleep problem, that they wake up because something has gone wrong, and the job of the parent is to fix it. But a researcher named James McKenna, who runs the Mother-Baby Behavioral Sleep Laboratory at the University of Notre Dame, has spent over 30 years challenging that exact assumption. What he found is that babies don't wake up because something is broken. They wake up because something is working exactly as it was designed to work. McKenna's research, published across dozens of peer-reviewed studies from the 1990s through the 2020s, shows that infant sleep is fundamentally different from adult sleep, not just in quantity or duration, but in architecture. Babies spend a much higher percentage of their sleep time in what's called active sleep, which is lighter, more responsive, and more easily interrupted than the deep sleep adults experience. This isn't a design flaw, it's a feature. The reason goes back to something called the proximity response. Your baby's brain is wired from birth to monitor whether a caregiver is close. Not occasionally, constantly, even during sleep. Researchers at the University of Durham, in a 2013 study led by Helen Ball, found that infants show measurable physiological changes, including shifts in breathing patterns and heart rate, when separated from their primary caregiver. The brain doesn't stop watching just because the eyes are closed. This is where the sixth sense feeling comes from. Your baby isn't psychic. Their nervous system is doing exactly what it evolved to do, which is to notice when the person who keeps them alive has moved away. When you leave the room, their brain registers an absence and responds to it. The crying you hear isn't manipulation. It's a biological alarm system doing its job. But why is that alarm system so sensitive? The answer has to do with a concept called the fourth trimester, a term popularized by pediatrician Harvey Karp, but grounded in evolutionary biology. Human babies are born significantly more neurologically immature than most other mammals because of a simple anatomical problem. The human head got too big for the birth canal. Compared to a baby horse, which can walk within hours of being born, a human newborn is essentially helpless for months. The brain, the nervous system, the digestive system, all of it is still developing on the outside of the womb. This means human infants are uniquely dependent on caregiver proximity to survive. And survival, as far as evolution is concerned, is the only thing that matters. What this looks like in practice is a nervous system that never fully powers down when alone. Researchers measuring cortisol levels in infants during sleep have found that babies who are placed down and left alone show elevated stress hormones even when they appear to be sleeping quietly. A 2012 study by Wendy Middlemiss at the University of North Texas found that after several nights of sleep training, babies stopped crying, but their cortisol levels remained elevated, while their mother's cortisol levels dropped in response to the silence. The baby had learned not to signal distress. That's not the same as not feeling it. None of this means sleep training is harmful in every case, or that you should never put your baby down. The research is genuinely complex, and pediatric sleep experts disagree significantly on what the long-term effects are. What it does mean is that the expectation that babies should stop waking up and stop signaling for you by a specific age is based on a misunderstanding of what their brains are actually doing. There are things that genuinely help, and they're not about breaking your baby's will or toughening them up. Warmth from your body raises their temperature slightly, slowing the transition into lighter sleep phases. Your heartbeat and breathing act as what researchers call sensory anchors, helping regulate their own autonomic nervous system. A 2016 study from the University of British Columbia found that physical contact during infancy reduces cortisol reactivity, not just in the moment but over time, building a kind of biological buffer against stress. The closeness isn't creating dependency, it's building the regulatory capacity that eventually allows them to be independent. If you're reading this in a state of genuine exhaustion, that matters too. Your mental and physical health affect your ability to respond to your baby, and that's a real consideration. The goal isn't to guilt anyone into a particular approach. It's to give you accurate information about what's actually happening in that crib so you can make decisions that make sense for your family. One thing that helps many parents is understanding the concept of a sleep cycle ending. Babies cycle through sleep stages roughly every 40 to 50 minutes. The moments when they are most likely to wake fully and call for you are at the end of a cycle, when they shift from deep sleep back toward the surface. If you can get through the first cycle without responding and they settle, that's different from them calling out mid-cycle. Knowing this doesn't solve anything instantly, but it changes the way you interpret what you're hearing. Room temperature plays a small role. Wrapping that's too loose or too tight affects how easily they startle themselves awake. White noise, used correctly, can extend sleep periods by masking sudden acoustic changes that trigger arousal. These are not magic solutions, but they're adjustments rooted in how infant sleep actually works, not in the idea that you need to teach your baby a lesson about sleeping. The night you're most exhausted, when the crying starts again 30 seconds after you've sat down, it's easy to feel like you're losing, like your baby is doing something to you. But here's what's true. That baby is not trying to manipulate you. Their brain is doing the one thing it knows how to do, which is to find you. Every single time they call out and you respond, you're giving their nervous system the information it needs to develop properly. That's not nothing. That's actually everything, even when it doesn't feel that way at 2 a.m. The parents who struggle most with this stage are often the ones who were told it should already be over. That by 4 months or 6 months or 8 months, their baby should be sleeping through. And if they're not, something has gone wrong. But if you look at what researchers like McKenna, Ball, and Middlemiss have actually found, the picture is different. Most babies are not broken. Most parents are not doing it wrong. Most of what's happening at night is a healthy nervous system doing exactly what it evolved to do, in a world that wasn't designed to make that easy. There will be a night when you put your baby down and they stay asleep, not because you finally did something right, but because their brain has matured enough to handle separation without triggering the alarm. That happens on a biological timeline, not a parenting performance timeline. And when it happens, you'll probably lie awake for a while anyway, because your own nervous system will have its own adjustment to make. Until then, if this helped you understand your baby a little better tonight, share it with someone who's going through the same thing. It won't make the nights shorter, but it might make them feel less like failure. Subscribe if you want more of this kind of content, and leave a like if it was worth your time. It genuinely helps more people find this.